Hey, welcome in. This is an original Tales First story about what happens when someone stops tolerating how they're treated. Let's begin.
When I got hospitalized, my parents refused to look after my 5-year-old. "The child is a nightmare," they said right in front of her. Then drove off on a luxury sea tour with my sister's kids. Later, my aunt walked in and said, when my parents saw her, they went pale. If you've ever watched adults do that thing where they put on their concerned face because there are witnesses, you already know how this starts. One minute, my daughter Mila and I were doing our normal after-school routine. Snack negotiations, the eternal debate of, is a granola bar a cookie? Her telling me a story that began with, so there was a dragon, but also a teacher, and ended somewhere near the extinction of humanity. The next minute, we were in the hospital. I'm not going to make this a medical drama. I'm not interested in describing machines or beeping or whatever. The only important detail is this. I was stuck behind a curtain, and Mila was stuck being 5. She stood close enough that her little fingers kept catching on my sleeve. Not pulling, not tugging, just holding on, like if she let go, I might vanish. Her eyes were wide in that way kids get when they're trying to be brave because they can feel the adults around them are scared. A nurse leaned in and spoke in a voice that was gentle but also very clear in a "we do this all the time" way. "Is there anyone who can come take your daughter?" she asked. "She can't stay back here." I remember looking at Mila and thinking, of course she can't stay back here. This place is basically a maze of sharp corners and adult panic. "I can call my parents," I said, and I heard my own voice trying to sound normal. Like this was just inconvenient, not terrifying, because, listen, my parents live nearby. They are the kind of people who are always busy, but also the kind of people who love appearing helpful in public. The hospital is like a stage with fluorescent lighting. Surely they would show up. I gave the nurse their numbers. Mila pressed closer to me and whispered, "Are we going home soon?" "Soon," I said, because that's what moms do. We say soon like it's a magic spell. The nurse stepped out, made the call, came back and said, "They're on their way." Mila exhaled like she'd been holding her breath with her whole body. "Grandma's coming?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Grandma and Grandpa." Mila nodded so hard her ponytail bobbed. Then she climbed onto the chair beside the bed and folded her hands in her lap like she'd been instructed by an invisible teacher to be good. That's the thing about Mila. She's not a nightmare. She's sensitive. She's intense. She feels things with her entire face. But she tries so hard. And honestly, the only nightmare in that room was the growing realization that I could not physically protect her from what was about to happen. My parents arrived about 40 minutes later. I know because Mila kept asking, "How many minutes now?" And I kept glancing at the clock like I could make time behave if I stared hard enough. The curtain swished. My mother appeared first, face arranged into a concerned expression like she'd practiced it in the mirror. My father came in right behind her, scanning the room like he was checking for cameras. Mila practically launched herself off the chair. "Grandma!" she cried, and ran to my mother like she was an answer. My mother bent down and opened her arms. She hugged Mila, tight, theatrical. The kind of hug you give when you want the world to know you're hugging. "Oh, sweetheart," my mother cooed, and then she looked past Mila at me. "Tessa, what happened?" I tried to sit up and failed. I tried to smile and failed. I tried to keep my voice calm. "I need you to take Mila," I said. "Just for tonight. I don't know if they're keeping me." There was a moment, just a heartbeat, where I truly believed she would say yes, because this is a normal request. This is what families do. This is what grandparents do. My mother's expression flickered. Not concern, calculation. Then she did a little laugh. Light, breezy, the kind of laugh adults do when they want to make something feel smaller, more manageable, more not their problem. "Oh, Tessa," she said, and she didn't even lower her voice. She said it right there in front of Mila, like Mila was a lamp, like Mila was furniture. "She's a bit of a nightmare. You know what she's like." Mila heard it. You could see it hit. Her shoulders went in. Her face went blank in a way that made my stomach drop. She didn't cry immediately. She just froze, like her little body was deciding whether it was safer to disappear. I felt something snap inside me. Not rage exactly. More like clarity. "Don't say that in front of her," I said. I kept my voice steady because Mila was watching me. "Please, just take her." My father shifted his weight and glanced at his watch. "We can't," he said. Just that. No apology. No explanation. Like I'd asked him to water my plants. I stared at him. "What do you mean you can't?" I asked. My mother sighed. Her eyes darted toward the nurse's station beyond the curtain as if she wanted to keep her image intact. "We're busy," she said. "We can't do this right now." I let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. "I'm in the emergency room." My mother's mouth tightened. "And you're awake. You're talking. You're fine." Mila's fingers tightened on my sleeve. She was looking at my mother like she didn't recognize her anymore. I swallowed and tried again. "Please, she needs someone she knows." My mother leaned in and kissed my forehead, quick, perfunctory, like she was stamping a document. "Be good for Mommy, okay?" she said to Mila, smiling brightly. And then she turned and walked out. My father followed, without Mila. For half a second, I didn't move because my brain genuinely refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. It was like watching someone commit a social crime in slow motion. Like surely someone would stop them. Surely an alarm would go off. Surely the universe would correct itself. But the universe did not. The curtains swished closed behind them. Mila made a small sound, soft, strangled. Like she was trying to swallow her crying because she'd just been told she was a nightmare and she didn't want to prove it. I reached for her, but a nurse stepped in gently, her voice firm. "We need to move your daughter out of the treatment area," she said. "We'll keep her safe, but she can't stay back here." Mila looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. "Mom? I'm here," I said, even though I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. I smoothed her hair and said the only thing I could think of. "You didn't do anything wrong." The nurse crouched down to Mila's level. "Hey, sweetheart, I'm going to take you to a family room where you can sit and have some water, okay?" Mila's gaze flicked from the nurse back to me, pleading. She clung harder. And then the nurse gently peeled her fingers off my sleeve. I watched my child get led away down a hallway because my parents refused to take her. That's the betrayal, not the leaving. The leaving was bad. But the betrayal was the fact that Mila looked back at me as she was taken away, and I couldn't go with her. Hours passed in a blur of waiting and adults speaking in calm voices that did not calm me. Every time someone came near, my first question was the same. "Where is my daughter?" "She's safe," they told me. "Is she with my parents?" I asked. There was always that pause, that tiny, careful pause. And in that pause, I learned a new kind of fear. When I finally got my phone back, my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I had no messages from my mother. No, "How is it going?" No, "Do you need anything?" No, "Mila is okay." Nothing. The next afternoon, when they finally handed my phone back for more than 2 minutes, I had notifications. Sloane had posted. My sister, Sloane, might as well be called the sun, because in my family everything orbits her. She'd posted a series of photos, bright sky, smiling kids, boat railing, a ridiculous amount of happiness. And there, in the background of the third photo, were my parents, grinning, like this was the best day of their lives. I stared at the screen until my eyes stung. They weren't busy. They weren't trapped. They weren't dealing with something important. They were out on a luxury sea tour with my sister's kids while the hospital arranged emergency care for my child. I set the phone down very carefully, the way you set down a glass you know is about to shatter. Not long after my parents walked out on us, the curtain moved again. A woman stepped in who didn't look like a nurse and didn't look like hospital staff. She looked like someone who belonged in my life, except she hadn't been, not for a long time. Aunt Irene. She was older than my mother, childless, quietly wealthy in a way that didn't need to announce itself. When I was little, she was the person who remembered my favorite snacks, who asked what I was reading, who treated me like I was interesting, not useful. Then she disappeared from my life. Or more accurately, she was removed from it. I blinked up at her, not sure if I was hallucinating. She just looked at me and said, "Where is Mila?" At the time, I didn't know how she'd found us, or what her presence was about to set off. If Aunt Irene showing up felt like a plot twist, it's because my family has always been very committed to the art of selective reality. Example: my childhood. I brought home an A+ paper once. I slid it onto the kitchen counter like I was presenting evidence in court. My mom glanced at it and said, "Nice." Then she called out, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Sloan, come here, honey. Tell your sister what happened at lunch today." Sloan marched in like she owned the place and announced, "Mrs. Halpern said my drawing was so creative." My parents reacted like she'd cured a disease. I stood there holding my A+ like, "Okay, cool. I'll just laminate my feelings." That was the family brand. I was the capable one. Sloan was the special one. We didn't need a family meeting. We had a pattern. When we had kids, the pattern didn't disappear. It got a budget. At one of Sloan's kids' soccer games, my parents showed up in matching shirts. Matching shirts. Like they were a themed attraction. My dad had a folding chair. My mom had snacks. There was a cooler involved. A cooler. When it was over, they took 47 pictures, posted 3, and called it the best day ever. 2 weeks later, Mila had her little preschool presentation. It was 8 kids holding paper plate masks and whispering into a microphone. I texted my mom the time and said, "It would mean a lot if you came." She replied, "Busy. Rain check. Tell her we're proud." Tell her. Like pride was something you could send through the mail. Mila still asked, "Are Grandma and Grandpa coming?" I said, "Maybe next time," like I didn't already know the answer. Then the money started. 7 years ago, my mom called me on a random Tuesday with that specific voice she uses when she wants your nervous system to do the work for her. "My back is killing me," she said. Not, "I'm sore." Not, "I overdid it." More like, "I am a tragic heroine in a Victorian novel." Then she added the line that makes you feel like a monster for breathing. "The doctors can't really figure it out." Pain plus mystery is the ultimate guilt sandwich. She didn't give me medical details. She didn't need to. She skipped straight to the part where the world is unfair and only I can fix it. "The treatments aren't covered," she said. "The good ones. We're trying everything." I work in finance. I'm not living in a penthouse, but I wasn't choosing between rent and ramen either. I had tight but doable money, so I said, "Okay, how much?" That night I set up a monthly transfer, $1,580. My mom loved that number. Specific numbers sound official. Specific numbers sound like it's based on something other than vibes and manipulation. The first month she texted, "Got it. Not thank you. Not you're saving me. Just, got it." Like I'd sent her a package. Then it settled into routine, and once something becomes routine, people stop asking if it should exist, until it doesn't. The extras started about 3 months in. They always arrived like a pop quiz. "We need a deposit today." Her back flared again. This new place might finally help. Always urgent. always framed like delay equals suffering, always small enough to feel petty to resist. $750, not $10,000, not sell your car, just enough to make you think, fine, I can do this. It's my mom. And every time I hesitated, my mother had a way of making my hesitation sound cruel. You don't want me to be in pain, do you? Which is a wild question, because obviously no one wants that. But also, I didn't want my daughter growing up thinking love equals emergency transfers. At home, I lived like someone who was doing fine on paper and doing math in my head in real life. I'd be in Target holding 2 identical packs of socks, calculating which one was cheaper per pair, like I was running a small nation. Mila would point at a toy and say, "Can I have that?" And I'd say, "Maybe for your birthday," while my bank account quietly funded my mother's treatment and my sister's entire personality. Meanwhile, my parents still found money for things that didn't look like pain. My mom's hair suddenly got shinier. My dad's watch got nicer. Sloane's life stayed comfortable. Once, I saw a photo of my mom at a restaurant with Sloane. Table full of plates, cocktails, the whole "we deserve this" vibe. I stared at it and thought, that's funny, because last week your back pain was apparently so severe you needed me to send $750 by 3 p.m. But I didn't say anything, because I was the capable one, the peacekeeper, the one who didn't make noise. I told myself the same lie over and over. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not my business. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe I'm selfish for even noticing. And that worked, right up until the hospital night. Because you can explain away a lot. You can explain away a suspicious brunch. You can explain away a new purse. But it's hard to explain away your child going quiet after being called a nightmare. It's hard to explain away your parents walking out of the ER without her. And it's impossible to explain away the fact that strangers had to keep your 5-year-old safe because your family wouldn't. When my aunt showed up at the hospital, she didn't bring flowers or a smoothie or a speech about positive thinking. She brought the first question that mattered. "Where's Mila?" Not, "How are you?" Not, "What happened?" Just, "Where is the child?" A nurse answered before I could. "She's in the family room. She's safe." My aunt's eyes narrowed slightly. "Safe because—" The nurse hesitated, the way professionals hesitate when they're choosing words that won't get them yelled at. "Because staff stepped in," she said carefully. "There wasn't an available guardian." My chest tightened. "And her grandparents?" my aunt asked. The nurse's pause was the answer. "They came earlier," she said. "They left." My aunt nodded once, like she'd already filed that under exactly what I suspected. Then she sat down close to my bed and took my hand in both of hers. Her grip was steady and warm, the opposite of my mother's quick forehead kisses, the ones that feel like a stamp. "I'm listed as an emergency contact," she said. "That's why they called me." I blinked. "I don't remember—" "You put me down years ago," she said gently. "Probably a school form. You knew who would show up." That sentence should have been comforting. It was. It was also humiliating in a way I can't explain without sounding dramatic, like I'd been quietly preparing for this kind of betrayal without admitting it to myself. Before I could speak, the curtain moved again. My parents walked in. Not quietly. Not nervously. They walked in like this was a scene they expected to take over, like the hospital had simply been holding my place in line until they could return. My mother's face was arranged into concern. My father's brows were knitted into serious. It was a good performance. My parents are very good at looking like parents. Then my mother saw my aunt sitting beside me. The concerned face vanished so fast it was almost impressive. My father stopped mid-step. His eyes flicked to the nurse, then to the social worker standing behind them, then back to my aunt. He was counting witnesses. That's when I understood why they were here. Not because they suddenly regretted leaving Mila, because someone official had called them back. The social worker cleared her throat. "Thank you for returning. We need to document what happened earlier regarding the minor child." My mother's voice turned sweet. "Of course. We were just confused about what was needed. There was a misunderstanding." My aunt didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You left your granddaughter in a hospital," she said. My mother blinked rapidly. "We didn't leave her. You walked out," my aunt said, calm and clear. "And you didn't take her." My father's jaw tightened. "This doesn't need an audience." My aunt tilted her head. "You made it public when you abandoned a child in a public place." My mother tried to recover. "You know how Tessa is," she said, letting out a little laugh as if we were all friends at brunch. "She always turns things into a crisis. She never helps, and now we're the villains." I stared at her. Never helps. My aunt looked at my mother like she'd just tried to hand her a flyer for something she did not want. "That's not the story the hospital has," my aunt said, "and it won't be the story in my house." My mother's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes darted to the social worker again. She could feel control slipping. The social worker spoke gently but firmly. "If you are refusing to take custody tonight, we need that stated." My mother's face tightened. "We're not refusing." My aunt turned slightly toward the social worker. "They refused earlier. That's why you called me." The social worker glanced at her notes and nodded. "That aligns with our report." My mother went pale. Not in an exaggerated way, in a very human, very scared way. The look of someone realizing a paper trail now exists. My father cleared his throat. "Where is Mila?" "In the family room," the nurse said. "With staff." My aunt stood. "She's coming with me." My mother's head snapped up. "Excuse me?" "I'm taking her tonight," my aunt said. "And tomorrow. And for as long as it takes." My mother's voice sharpened. "You can't just take our granddaughter." My aunt didn't flinch. "You had your chance." The social worker looked at my aunt. "You are listed as emergency contact, correct?" "Yes," my aunt said. The social worker nodded. "Then we can document temporary care transfer to you." My mother's face did something awful. It tried to smile, and it couldn't. She turned to me, voice suddenly soft. "Honey, we'll take Mila now. We were just overwhelmed earlier." I heard, as if it echoed off the hospital walls, "The child is a nightmare." I didn't answer. My aunt asked the nurse to bring Mila in. When Mila walked in, she didn't run to anyone. She moved slowly, like she didn't trust the room anymore. She looked at me first, then at my mother, then back at me. My aunt crouched to her level. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "I'm going to stay with you tonight." Mila's eyes widened. "Are you taking me?" "Yes," my aunt said. "Your mom's going to be okay, and you're going to be safe." Mila looked at me like she needed permission. I nodded, throat too tight to speak, and Mila leaned into my aunt like she'd been holding her own weight for hours and was finally allowed to stop. My mother made a small sound like she wanted to argue. The social worker didn't even look up. "This is documented," she said. My parents left. Again. And this time the room didn't feel emptier. It felt cleaner. After Mila left with my aunt, the room went quiet in a way that should have felt peaceful. It didn't. It felt like someone had turned the volume down on my life and left me alone with the part I'd been avoiding for years. I stared at the ceiling and tried to rest, but my brain kept replaying one moment on a loop. My mother saying, "The child is a nightmare," like it was a joke, like Mila wasn't standing right there. I didn't see my aunt again that night. That made sense. Mila needed an adult. I needed stitches in my life, not conversation. The next morning, when the hospital finally let me sit up without hovering staff nearby, my aunt walked in again. She looked tired. Not fragile tired. Determined tired. The kind of tired you get when you've been up with a child who isn't yours, but is trying very hard not to cry. She sat down, exhaled, and said, "Mila fell asleep holding my hand." My throat tightened. "Was she okay?" "She was scared," my aunt said simply. "But she's okay. She's safe." Then she paused, and her expression shifted into something almost awkward, like she was about to say something she didn't like saying. "I need you to know something," she said. I braced myself. "They've been talking about you for years," my aunt said. "Your parents. Not loudly. Not in a way you could point to and prove. Just little comments. Little stories." My stomach dropped. "What kind of stories?" My aunt looked at me, steady. "That you don't help them. That you're selfish. That you're too busy. That you make everything difficult." I stared at her. "And," my aunt added, voice tightening slightly, "even if that were true, it still wouldn't excuse what they did last night. You don't abandon a child. You don't say things like that in front of her and walk away." For a second, all I heard was the phrase, "even if that were true." I blinked. "What do you mean, even if that were true?" My aunt frowned. "I mean, that's what they've said. I'm not saying I believe it now. I'm saying it doesn't matter. It's still not okay." I sat there, staring at her like she'd spoken a different language. "They told you I don't help them?" I repeated. My aunt nodded once. "Yes." Something in my chest went cold and sharp. "I've been sending them money every month," I said, and the words came out flat, like my mouth didn't belong to me. "For years." My aunt's face didn't change right away. She just looked confused, like she was waiting for the punchline. I swallowed. "A monthly transfer. $1,580. My aunt went very still. "Tessa." "I thought it was for my mom's back pain," I said. "Treatments. Things insurance wouldn't cover. That's what they told me, and then there were extra payments when she was flaring or when there was a deposit due." My aunt's mouth parted slightly. She didn't speak. She just stared. And that stare did something to me, because suddenly I realized how absurd it sounded out loud, how unbelievable it would be to someone who'd been told the opposite story for years. "You don't believe me," I said. My aunt's eyes snapped to mine. "I'm trying to process it." "I know," I said, and my voice shook. "I know how it sounds. That's why I didn't want to say it. That's why I didn't want to add it up." My hands were trembling as I reached for my phone. Not because she demanded proof, because I needed her to see it with her own eyes. I needed someone to see it. "I can show you," I said quietly. "I don't have the total in my head, but it's there." My aunt didn't move. She just nodded, slowly, like she was afraid that if she moved too fast, this would become real. I opened my banking app and scrolled. Month after month after month. $1,580. The same number, repeated like a heartbeat. My aunt leaned forward without realizing she was moving. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh," she whispered. I kept scrolling. My throat burned. That's 7 years, I said. "And the extra payments are in here too." My aunt's jaw actually dropped. Not in a dramatic way, in a stunned, quiet way that felt worse than shouting. "They told me," she said slowly, like the words hurt to form, "that you never supported them, that you wouldn't help at all." I laughed once, sharp and bitter. "Apparently I'm selfish and also an ATM." My aunt stared at the screen again, then up at me, and something changed in her face. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. They lied to me, she said, very softly. Then she looked down at the numbers again and added even softer. And if they lied to me, they've been lying to you. She didn't say anything dramatic after that. She didn't promise revenge. She didn't give me a speech. She just sat there for a moment, staring at my phone like it might start making sense if she looked long enough. By the time I was discharged and back on my own couch, still sore and exhausted, she was already texting me lists. Over the next week, we worked in quiet bursts while Mila colored at the kitchen table and my aunt made sure she felt safe. We pulled statements. We gathered screenshots of the urgent texts. We lined up dates. We didn't need drama. The pattern was dramatic enough. Then my aunt hired a forensic accountant and a private investigator, not to break into anyone's bank, to trace what could be traced from my records, build a timeline, and verify what my parents claimed versus what they actually did in public. When the first preliminary report came in, my aunt slid a slim folder across my kitchen table and said, "This is just the beginning." I opened it and saw my life turned into a clean summary. I looked up. "So what now?" My aunt folded her hands. "We don't confront them at home," she said. "We do it where they can't rewrite it." My heart thudded. "Where?" She met my eyes. "In front of everyone," she said. "My parents love family gatherings the way actors love opening night. It's where they control the story. A few weeks later, there was a gathering. Everyone was there. Relatives, cousins, a couple family friends. My mother was glowing, playing hostess like nothing had ever happened. My father hovered nearby, scanning the room like he was checking exits. Mila stayed close to me. My aunt arrived quietly, no announcement, no fuss, just calm. My mother's smile went too bright when she saw her. "Irene! What a surprise!" My aunt smiled politely, not warmly, politely. My mother floated through the room, making sure everyone saw her being wonderful. Then, inevitably, she tried to restart the script where I'm the problem. She laughed and said to a relative, loud enough for people to hear, "You know Tessa, always dramatic, always needs something." A few people chuckled. It was reflex. That's how scripts work. Mila's hand tightened around mine. My aunt stepped forward. "I'd like everyone to listen for a moment," she said. She didn't shout. She didn't beg. She spoke like someone who had already decided the conversation was happening. The room went quiet in slow motion. My mother blinked. "Irene, what is this?" My aunt opened her folder and said, "You've been telling people for years that Tessa never helps you." My mother's smile twitched. "Well," my aunt held up a hand. "I've seen the receipts." The air changed. "For 7 years," my aunt said, "Tessa has sent you $1,580 every month." My mother's face drained. My father's jaw clenched. My sister's smile faltered. My aunt continued, voice steady. 84 payments. That totals $132,720. Someone whispered, "That can't be right." My aunt didn't even look at them. "There were also 42 additional payments you requested as urgent, $750 each. That totals $31,500. She looked around the room and said the total like she was reading a verdict. $164,220. My mother went pale. My father stared at the floor. My sister looked like she'd been slapped. My mother tried to recover. Tessa offered. My aunt's tone stayed calm. These payments were tied to a story, back pain treatment. My mother's voice rose. "My back pain is real." My aunt nodded once. "That isn't the question tonight." She held up a printed screenshot. "This is your message. Deposit due today or they cancel the program." Another. "This is, her back flared again. We need 750 by 3. Another. This next treatment might finally help." She looked around. "That is not casual support. That is pressure." My sister stepped forward, sharp. "This is none of your business." My aunt turned slowly. "It became my business when a child was abandoned." The room froze. Then my aunt said the line that landed like a dropped plate. "They came to the hospital," she said, looking directly at my mother and father. "They refused to take Mila, and my sister said, in front of that child, 'The child is a nightmare.'" My mother's breath hitched. My father's face went tight with shame. My sister's eyes flashed. My aunt kept going, voice still even. "They left. Hospital staff had to arrange emergency care because no guardian would take her." Mila pressed closer to my side. I didn't move. I didn't have to. My aunt was saying what needed to be said. "And while Mila was being kept safe by strangers," my aunt said, "these two were smiling in photographs on a luxury sea tour with the other grandchildren." My mother whispered, "We were busy." My aunt's eyes sharpened. "You were on a boat." Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. My aunt closed the folder gently. Then she said, "I am updating my trust. Effective immediately." My mother made a small sound, like her body tried to argue before her brain could find words. My father's face tightened with fear. My sister went still. My aunt's voice stayed calm. "Mila's future will be protected. Tessa will not be used as a financial source again." My mother finally found words. "You can't," my aunt cut her off, polite as a closed door. "I can." She looked around the room. "People who exploit family do not inherit from me. People who abandon children do not get rewarded for it." And that was it. No speech after. No messy shouting. No room for rewriting. The story had changed in front of witnesses. A year later, things were quieter. Not magically healed, not perfect, just quieter in the way life gets when you stop feeding the chaos. And I didn't just cut them off. I decided to sue. Not because I wanted a dramatic revenge arc. Because once I saw the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. The money I sent for back pain treatment didn't line up with reality. It lined up with luxury trips, expensive outings with my sister's kids, and the kind of presents you buy when someone else is paying. My aunt recommended a lawyer who didn't get distracted by tears or offended outrage. The kind of lawyer who likes calendars, screenshots, and numbers. We didn't try to prove every single payment was misused. We couldn't. 7 years is a long time, and treatment is a convenient word when you want things to stay vague. But we proved enough. Enough messages tied to deposits and urgent appointments. Enough dates that matched spending, not care. Enough inconsistencies that the story my parents sold me stopped sounding like bad luck and started sounding like a system. So we pushed. And we won enough to matter. I recovered $68,000. $40,000 came as a lump sum. The rest came the slow way. $700 a month for 40 months. Every deposit felt like proof I wasn't crazy for trusting my own eyes. After the hearing, we went no contact except through the lawyer. Not for punishment. For protection. For Mila. For me. And then something unexpected happened. Life filled in the space they left. My aunt became a constant. Sunday visits. Quiet dinners. Someone who asked Mila questions and actually listened to the answers. Someone who never made her feel like she had to be smaller to be loved. She set up trust funds too, simple and solid. The kind of planning that says, you're safe and you're not alone. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about how far it went and how long I let it go on. And I wonder if I did the right thing, or if I went too far. What do you think? Did I do the right thing, or did I go too far? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.